Back to the Dean Obeidallah show. Right now, very happy to have back on the show Senator Chris Van Hollen, a Democrat representing Maryland, serves on the Appropriations Committee, Foreign Relations, among other committees. Senator Van Hollen, nice to see you, my friend. You've been doing a great job. Thanks for making some time.
Hey, thank you, Dean. It's good to be with you.
So, first thing, I'm not sure if you're obligated as a senator to watch Donald Trump's speeches. We're not sure what happened. He yelled a lot. He demanded that I think we be grateful for a bad economy. I'm not sure what political book this comes from, as opposed to having empathy and compassion for people going through hard times. But what did you make of it?
Yeah, it's kind of like having to do your homework, eat your beats. It was 19 minutes of the president screaming at the television set and really telling Americans not to trust their own experience with rising prices and feeling financially squeezed. It's just everything's okay because, I'm in the White House and I promised I'd bring prices down on day one. And, despite what you're seeing, I really did. Don't believe the price tags. Don't believe what you're seeing and feeling. Don't worry about it. That was the message.
And what's remarkable is it came like just a day after an NPR Marist poll showing his lowest approval ratings on the economy. There's even a Fox News poll the day before that showed about 60% of Americans think he's not focused on the right issues. And where's his real passion? The night before, talking about the $400 million ballroom and renaming the Kennedy Center in violation of the law, but after himself. It's almost like an experiment we're in. Like, this can't be real, but it's real life. I don't know how to make sense of this.
Yeah, I mean, look, this guy is all about Donald Trump. All you have to know about what he's going to do next is what can somehow advance his interest, his ego, and that of his sort of family fortunes and his billionaire buddies, because that is the organizing principle of this president. He doesn't give a damn about everybody else. He pretends to, but when you actually look at what he does, he is enriching himself and his family and screwing everybody else in the country and others around the world, for that matter.
And, getting back to the real issue of the economy, like, what are you seeing in Maryland? What are you hearing from people about what they're dealing with affordability, job loss? I mean, unemployment when Trump came to office was 4.0%. It's now 4.6%. It's probably higher because they couldn't collect all the data. But, we are moving in the wrong direction by the data, and by consumer sentiment backs that up.
Yeah, people in Maryland are feeling squeezed. I mean, I travel across our state, and I think people see the president as incredibly detached. He keeps saying, prices are going down, and people are saying, I'd like to get his shopping list. Like, where's the president shopping? I mean,
Right.
we know he's not going out to the local supermarket. I mean, he thought groceries was somehow a new word. So look, this guy is totally detached from reality. He's delusional. But the reality is his Trump tariffs, his across the board tariffs, have driven up prices. I mean, this is pretty simple math, and people are feeling the brunt of it. And of course, we're also seeing this ticking time bomb on healthcare costs,
Yep.
which is about to explode by the end of this month, because when Donald Trump and Republicans passed their big, beautiful bill, they extended the tax cuts for billionaires and very rich people. So, if you're one of them, it was a beautiful bill. For everybody else, it really stunk. And the one tax cut, this is important for people to remember, Dean, the one tax cut that they allowed to lapse, to go away, was the tax credit that allows middle-class families to better afford their health care. The richest of the rich, they had their tax cuts extended forever. The others, for middle-class Americans, they let them die.
And I think you're right about Trump. When he talked about the economy being A++++, I think he used 4 pluses. He means his own economy. I mean, reporting is himself and his family are now increased their wealth $2 to $3 billion since he came to office in January. And that's based on journalist reporting, not me speculating. Who knows what it really is? So yeah, for him, economy is great. The rest of us, it's a struggle. We all know when you go to the grocery store, and I go to Trader Joe's, I love it. I talk about it on the show all the time. For the first time, the last 2 months, I've seen prices noticeably up there. And that store was a bastion against inflation. Now even they are passing over the tariffs to us. So this is the real world. I wanted to touch on the ACA subsidies. What would the impact be on Maryland, people in your state? Because now we're signing up for ACA for next year. And I'm sure they're seeing the sticker shock of huge prices without a subsidy.
Well, that's exactly right, Dean. We're going to see about 200,000 Marylanders approximately see big increases in their healthcare costs, in their premiums. It's estimated that about 30,000 of them will not be able to afford the new prices, that they're so high that they're not going to be able to put it together. And of course, those individuals, they still get sick. They still show up in our emergency rooms at the hospital. They become what's called uncompensated care. And you know who pays for that? All the rest of us, right? So the premiums and healthcare costs are going to go up for everybody in America. It will especially hit the people who are part of the Affordable Care Act and benefiting from these tax credits. But everybody is going to see rising healthcare costs because of what Trump and the Republicans are doing. Now, I'm in the camp that believes, number one, do no harm, right? That's what doctor's maxim is. Don't make things worse.
Right.
But I do believe that we have a broken healthcare system. And I do believe we need to stop tinkering around the edges. I believe in universal healthcare. And I think it's time we move to a Medicare for all system.
I would applaud you if it was appropriate, but I could not agree with you more. I think people are seeing that. And polling shows, last time I saw about 60% of Americans support it. And, we talked earlier about affordability. Even those who can afford to pay the increased insurance cost, think about a family of four. They have a fixed budget. All of a sudden, they're like, okay, we're paying $800 more a month for healthcare, or $500 more, or $1,000 more. That means less money for food for their family, for buying clothes, winter jackets. So again, the crush and the crunch is happening right in front of us. Now, you used to be in the House. Like, what do you make of the 4 Republicans breaking the sergeant sign a discharge petition, and this second time Republicans have signed a discharge petition against the leadership's position?
Yeah, well, because they're hearing from their constituents who are about to lose their affordable health insurance, and so they're screaming like at the speaker and at the president. We got to do something, and instead of actually letting them have a vote to extend the tax credits, they've said no, which is why I'm glad that they signed this discharge petition, which will bring that bill before the entire House. They now have the votes to pass it. So then the question is, Senator Thune, who's the Republican leader in the Senate, will you commit to bringing it up? I asked him, in public about that the other day, and he's not committed to doing that. So this is just another example of, Republicans trying to do this dance and never ultimately taking a meaningful vote to make healthcare more affordable. Let's keep pushing. Right. But as of right now, Republicans are clearly signaling they really don't give a damn.
And I know that there was a proposed legislation earlier in this month to extend the subsidies. It didn't get over the filibuster in the Senate. Does it change the political dynamics if it actually passed the House in early January, which it will, because they're obligated to bring it to a vote. The votes are there. Once it passes, is there any more momentum that can bring a few more Republicans over to vote to allow an actual vote on this, overcome the filibuster?
Well, it should certainly create some momentum, because we'll be able to say that, this bill would pass, but for the fact that, Senator Thune won't bring it up, or that Republicans in the Senate are trying to filibuster it. We should say that this should be allowed to pass with 50 votes in the Senate, right?
Right.
It should a majority. I mean, in a democracy, the majority should rule. So we should call upon Senator Thune to let this come up for a vote in the Senate and let it pass with a majority vote. I mean, if there's not a majority, if Republicans, all vote against it, that will be their decision. They'll have to explain that to their constituents. But don't hide behind the filibuster. Let's just have an up or down vote in the United States Senate.
I'm chatting with Senator Chris Van Hollen. Yeah, look, he made the majority vote to confirm some of Trump's appointments. This is about health care. That is life-saving for people. It's not a joke. You take health insurance away, studies have shown people will die. Unfortunately, they don't get preventative care. It's only emergency, and often it could be too late for them. So this is something polls show 70, 75, even 78% of Americans support extending the subsidies that the Republicans have cut. This, again, it's like political malpractice. And I don't know their motivation, if it's cruelty or they really don't believe government should help people. This is a winner for people. It's a winner for their own constituents who rely on the ACA. Can you help us make sense of it? I mean, is it just an antagonistic view to anything about government helping people?
Well, Republicans have been trying to drive a stake through the heart of the Affordable Care Act through Obamacare since the very beginning. And, we saw that a number of years ago when they tried to kill it outright. And it was only because, people like Senator McCain and a few other Republicans joined every Democrat in saying, no, we're not going to kill the Affordable Care Act. Really, this is important to tens of millions of
Yeah.
Americans. That is, Dean, that is their goal, is to ultimately kill the Affordable Care Act. And here's the thing, without any alternative, right? How many years have we been listening to Republicans saying they don't like the Affordable Care Act and we're going to come up with an alternative? And of course, they never do, right? They never do. And so, yeah, they would rather just kill the Affordable Care Act and have nothing in its place. And that would wreak havoc, throughout the country. And of course, they're wreaking havoc in many other ways. But, you would think that they would recognize that the American people really, really, really need this just to be able to have the ability to pay their bills.
I played a clip last night of Representative Jim McGovern on the floor of the House yesterday, going through all the promises of Donald Trump, giving the dates when he promised from a candidate all the way through. On Sunday, you're going to have it. In 2 weeks, you're going to have my plan, and nothing. You can't trust them on that. And that's the reality. And polls shows it. Americans get that. Even people who don't follow politics, they get Democrats about healthcare, Republicans not about healthcare, about taxes for the wealthy. Those are their issues. But I wanted to shift gears to something I played on my show a few weeks ago, your video you made that was very powerful, urging the release from the Israeli prison of 16-year-old Palestinian American Mohammed Ibrahim from Florida. He was arrested at 15 by the Israeli military, held in detention. Essentially, their administrative detention, were never brought to court to be able to answer the charges, held for 9 months, had skin infections, other health issues. And he's not even from your state. He's a fellow American, though. What moved you to make a video about this guy and lead the charge to get his ultimate release?
Well, look, my view, Dean, is we should leave no American behind, no matter where they are. And in this case, we were dealing with an American citizen who was unjustly detained, locked up by the Netanyahu government. And of course, the United States and U.S. taxpayers provide billions and billions of dollars to the government of Israel. You would think that we could exercise a little leverage to end this injustice, because if you ask Secretary Rubio what our number one job is overseas, of our embassies overseas, is to protect American citizens. And yet here you had a situation where the Netanyahu government had locked up this 15-year-old American without any kind of trial.
Right.
By all accounts, including his own, he was beaten. He was clearly mistreated and abused. And yet the American government did not do enough to secure his release. So I'm glad that people spoke out. I was glad to lead a letter signed by many of my Senate colleagues, but we had to keep at it. This is not something you should have to work so hard to secure the release of an American who's been unjustly detained. But the good news is he is now back with his family.
Did you ever hear from the Trump administration? Did they pressure at all? Did Ambassador Huckabee or Secretary Rubio do anything? I mean, obviously, we have so much leverage over Netanyahu to do the right thing. This is an American citizen being held wrongly, unjustly. And any kind of reaction from them until he was ultimately released?
Dean, I do not know. I know we were putting, pressure on Secretary Rubio, on Ambassador Huckabee. A number of us had private conversations with the president of Israel. So, look, I don't know what, at the end of the day, finally moved them to do the right thing. Again, it took too long, but I'm glad it finally happened. And, it's an important lesson. We all need to stand up and speak out when we see Americans unjustly detained, no matter where it is in the world. And I've done that in other cases on behalf of my constituents, but not only my constituents, in other cases on behalf of American citizens.
I think your video going viral played a big role, to be honest with you, and elevating yourself, and then other members of the House and the Senate signing legislation, or signing a letter, and that got pressed, because that's how I became more aware of it. I had seen some reporting, but then this video, I'm like, wow, this is such a big issue. So I want to shift gears, although in a way it's kind of related, but Kilmar Abrego Garcia is someone from your state. You've been championing his cause, wrongly detained and deported. You went and visited in El Salvador when he's in the prison. He was in legal limbo in America, which kind of got lost, the story. Now, my understanding, unless something's changed, he is now, thanks to his lawyers and the judges, free, and I think pending the charges against him. And I saw that you spoke to his wife, Jennifer, and Kilmar recently, just the last few days. What can you share about where he is now and the status of his situation?
Yeah, Dean, I've said that this case is not only about one man. It really is about his rights, Kilmar Abrego Garcia's rights, because if you can strip him of his rights, you can do that to others in America, because our constitutional rights to due process apply to him and they apply to everybody else in the country. And what the Trump administration had hoped to do was just trample over those rights and get away with it. So they said, at one point they would never even bring him back to the United States. They said they were going to leave him to rot in this gulag in El Salvador, which is known for its abuse and torture of prisoners. So we got him back in front of the courts. This is where the whole case belongs. You're right. A federal court judge has ordered his release, but the Trump administration is going to continue to pursue this case. And in fact, another federal district court judge said there was overwhelming evidence or strong evidence that the Trump administration is engaged in a vindictive prosecution against him. In other words, they're leveling more charges against him. Why? Because he exercised his constitutional rights, right? They're unhappy that he said, I am going to exercise my due process rights. And so they've responded by going after him even more. So this case is very much still in the courts, but the good news is for the moment, he is at home with his wife and his kids.
Yeah, it seems the Trump administration really made this some kind of big case, a rallying cry on Fox News and demonizing anyone who stood up for him. And you make such a great point. It's about due process for people on our soil, citizens, green card holders, or anyone on our soil. The same way with Mahmoud Khalil, a green card holder, who I told people, I don't care if you agree with his position on Palestine or not. It's not about that. This guy's a green card holder, and they're trying to deport him, take away his green card because they don't like what he said about a political issue, and that should concern everybody. And thankfully, Mahmoud Khalil is in a better position, my sense, than Garcia. I had Mahmoud on the show probably a couple months ago. He's still fighting in the courts. They're not letting go easy, but it's in a better situation there.
I think that you're making a very important point, though, about free speech here, because you have the Trump administration, whether it's the president or people like J.D. Vance, going around and lecturing our Europeans, like wagging our fingers at Europeans, saying that they're somehow restricting people's First Amendment rights, when right here in the United States, they locked up people like Mahmoud Khalil and other students for expressing their views on Gaza. And, just because the Trump administration didn't like what they said, they sent, American agents to lock them up and imprison them. Now, the good news is the courts, so far, federal district court judges and others have said that these are violations of their First Amendment rights. But as you point out, the Trump administration is still trying to come after these people for other reasons. And so it's just the grossest hypocrisy, where they claim that they're for First Amendment rights until someone says something that they disagree with. Then it's like, lock them up.
And look at the case of Jimmy Kimmel, and I bring that up because FCC Chair Brendan Carr was before the Senate yesterday. If they had their way, he'd be off the air. He'd be done. I mean, he'd be doing a podcast or something, but he'd be off national television because they didn't like his jokes for years about Donald Trump. They picked one last thing, but it was about free speech and not liking it, even in terms of comedy. I mean, yesterday, Senator Klobuchar asked Carr about, do you think you should be monitoring political satire? He goes, well, if it's the public interest still applies to it. Same the idea of comedians' jokes about a president. You have to worry for a second. That's not what the United States of America should be. You have the freedom to tell any joke you want about a president or anyone in power. And it's outrageous. This is where we are. It's part and parcel of it.
Yeah, it's outrageous. But this is why, Donald Trump envies people like Vladimir Putin, because Vladimir Putin, if a journalist says something to him, he can lock him up. Now, Donald Trump uses foul language against, journalists who ask him simple questions. He calls them names. But what we know is he would like to be like Vladimir Putin and lock them up. That is what they're doing. That's what they did to these students until some of the federal judges ordered their release.
Thankful. And very last thing, in the last minute here, there's a lot of press about what's going on off the coast of Venezuela, even also in the Pacific Ocean. Look, you're a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. I have no idea what the legal basis is to kill people based on an allegation without showing evidence in international water. That if they came on U.S. soil, we couldn't kill them legally without due process. And I don't even see a scenario where you can actually kill them if you charge them, unless they actually murdered someone. What is going on? I mean, how can this government, Trump regime, do this in any way that's even arguably legal?
Well, I've looked at the opinion, which was classified. It's a bunch of gobbledygook. I'm a lawyer. These are extrajudicial killings. These are state-sanctioned murders. But I think the important thing, Dean, is that this is not about intercepting drugs, right? If this is nothing to do with that, because, this is a president who has pardoned lots of drug kingpins who were the big guys, right? And he sent a signal that it's okay to do it. I'll pardon you. You also know that fentanyl doesn't come to the United States from Venezuela. So that's not what it's about. What we know this is about now is regime change. He wants to go after Maduro, but not because Maduro's a dictator, which he is, because we know Trump cozies up to dictators all over the world. So that's not why it is. What it's about is Trump wants to grab Venezuela's oil and gas. And they've been talking about it quite openly in the last, 48 hours. That's what this is about. And it's really, really sickening that the president of the United States is willing to put American servicemen and women at risk so his billionaire buddies might be able to go down there and grab and profit from Venezuela's oil and gas. That's what this is all about. That's why they're now intercepting ships, big cargo ships, nothing to do with interdicting drugs. That's their cover story for grabbing Venezuela's oil.
And I'm glad you're so blunt in the way you would analyze it, because that's what it seems like to us as well. Well, Senator Van Hollen, it's great catching up with you, especially right before the holidays. I want to wish you and your family a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I look forward to chatting with the new year.
Thank you. Good to be with you. Likewise.
Take care, my friend. Have a great day.